I'm here with Mr. Clay, one of the interpreters here at the fort. And Mr. Clay, can you tell me about your site here?
Yeah, so this site, do you just want like the museum in general, or?
Yep, whatever you want to say.
All right, yeah, so this museum originally was a church. It was a German Reformed church built in 1772. And then it was fortified in 1777 during the Revolutionary War. After a while, it eventually became a church once again, although it was attacked in 1780. There's still a cannonball hole in the back, and we have one of the cannonballs downstairs as well. And then it became a church once again. In 1857, it became an armory, and then eventually, the mid-1860s, you had the National Guard unit, the 108th National Guard Company B regiment was stationed, or they met here. And then in 1873, the building became abandoned, and then eventually in 1888, the building was handed over to the county, and then the county, the Schoharie Historical Society formed in 1889, and it's been a museum ever since.
Wow. All right. Thank you for that.
Yep.
Clay, what do you have here of Civil War artifacts?
So Civil War, we have quite a bit of Civil War. Right here in particular, a lot of this came from the 3rd New York Cavalry. Now this cavalry regiment was formed from all over upstate New York. We have a lot of it here because the leader of that cavalry regiment for about 2 years was a guy named Colonel Simon Mix. And Colonel Mix was actually from right around here in Schoharie. And he led the cavalry for a little over 2 years. He was killed during the siege of Petersburg, and they never found his body. But they did recover some of his belongings. So for instance, we see a receipt here of a strap that he had purchased at Tiffany & Co. back in New York City. He must have done this in, let's see, I believe it was 1862. Purchased this. And then right in here, we have his strap that he purchased.
Well, that's a neat artifact, and then you have the provenance to show that it's actually his, and the receipt.
Yep, and we also have his colonel badge right here as well. Now, what's interesting is that officers had to purchase their own badges, whereas those who were not officers, they were supplied a lot of items, but officers, they had to cover their own expenses.
All right. Do you have any weapons here in the museum?
We sure do. We have quite a few weapons. So this gun right here is a carbine. Now, carbines were commonly used in the Civil War. Carbines were commonly used by cavalry. They're a lot lighter and easier to maneuver than, say, typical musket. And a lot of times the cavalry soldiers would dismount, and they would, go out and scout, and they'd use these as their weapons. We also have a light cavalry saber right here too, for very close range. A lot of cavalry would carry this. This particular one belonged to a local guy, actually, Sergeant Rensselaer West Kinney, who's right from Schoharie.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I know you're real busy. I won't hold you up anymore.
Thank you.
And thank you. Mr. Clay, what is this wagon sitting here? It looks like a funny-looking wagon.
Yeah, so this wagon, we believe, is one of the oldest fire engines in the country. It originally came here by ship from London in 1731. It actually is one of 2 engines that came over. The other engine is in Hudson in the Firefighters Museum. This particular one, the way it'd work is it's actually person-drawn. So people would grab these and drag it, and it'd be filled with, it could hold about 170 gallons of water at a time. And they'd use people to drag it because horses, would not want to go near the fire, and who could blame them? So what they do is they fill this up. About 40 people or so would operate this. You'd have a lot of people would stand right on this thing. We have a little scale model right here. A lot of people would stand and they'd pump it up and down. As you can see, we got some pumps right here.
All right.
Just pump it up and down. You'd have one person standing right on here, manning the hose, Now this hose probably had enough water pressure equivalent to a garden hose of today. So it was really better at containing fires and actually putting them out, but that's how they did it back then, and this was, the top-notch technology of the time.
And what year this is?
1731.
Wow.
It's older than George Washington by about a year.
Let's take a look at the back side of this. What's this chute here for?
So this they'd use it's another area that they put water in.
So you'd have a bucket brigade maybe putting water in that.
Yeah, you'd have a lot of people operating this thing at a time, around 40 or so.
All right. Well, it looks it doesn't look bad at all for being a couple hundred years old.
No, and it was actually given to the fort in 1889, right when it became a museum. This was in use for about 150 years, we believe. Esperance was the last place to use it, and they retired it in 1885 because they got a newer model.
Okay. Well, thank you. Anything else you'd like to close out before we close out here?
I think one more thing. I just want to show you the cannonball.
All right. Clay, Goober I showed him where the cannonball hit the top of the roof of the building. Can you tell me where the cannonball is now?
Yes, so there are actually two cannonballs that hit the building. One of them is in the New York State Museum. The other one is right here. It's actually lodged in this piece of wood right here. It's a 3-pound cannonball. The British fired it on October 17th, 1780, and no one was killed during that time, but this was during a raid where they and the Mohawk Native Americans, led by Joseph Brant, and the British were led by Colonel John Johnston. He's actually the son of William Johnston from the French and Indian War. This was, so this cannonball, they fired it upon the fort during their raid when they were burning all the crops around in the valley.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. Goober the Traveling Bear is very grateful for all your help today.
Mm-hmm.